Hello, everyone. Welcome to Paranormal Connections radio show. George and I are back with you for another Monday night of lots of fun and interesting topics. I have to apologize for the beginning. You probably caught George having a fit over there. First of all, you got to love live, live television and live audio and live video because you're right in front of all the eyes, so everybody can catch everything. And I always try to let people know when I'm not feeling good. I just try to not do a show or whatever. Right before the show happened, most people, I've had bronchitis. And so I've had this horrible cough, but I've still just been acting like nothing's wrong with me. And I had this coughing fit. I've been coughing for a couple of days. And right before the show, I coughed so hard. All of a sudden, I heard a pop. And now I can't take a deep breath on my left side. So I have no idea what I did, but I tried to take a deep breath before I did the countdown, and I was like, oh. And he loves how I try to like do everything before get all my ouches out before the show starts.
Yeah.
All right.
So
Good.
no, it's just that's why I was laughing because you're just falling apart on me. Everybody sees you from about the top of your head to about maybe shoulder. But you know what? Yes, you are beautiful, and yes, you are everything. You're awesome. But you know what? Down below, you're probably like 99 years old. You're falling apart on us, Miss G.
That is no lie. I mean, I have people tell me all the time, oh my God, you're 51 and you got two grandkids. You don't look like it. I said,
Ah,
well, if I could unzip myself and turn myself inside out, I'd scare the hell out of that. People probably look about 300 years old. It's pretty
yeah.
bad.
No, we're
But
all of us are about the same age here. I'm in my 50s, and you know what? It's all in your mind. It's all in your mind. So I'm looking forward to this. It's gonna be a lot of fun tonight.
absolutely, absolutely. Now, for all of the listeners out there, and we know we have all kinds worldwide,
Millions and millions and millions.
I'm not going to exaggerate that much, but we're getting up towards 1 million.
Yeah, come on.
We're over half a million, so that's a definite. So, and it's a worldwide
Beautiful.
audience, so we appreciate all of the support. Some places that I didn't even realize anybody listened to. Like we have listeners in Pakistan, in Korea, and all
Well,
these places. I would have thought, like, why in the world would they be listening to us? But then I think, why wouldn't they? We have a great show.
it's an awesome show. We're having fun, and that's what people need.
Absolutely. Hey, Kent, nice to see you. Look like you're new to the chat, so welcome everybody. Also, for everybody who's comes on the stream, make sure you go and share this link either on your page or any of the groups you're in. Facebook decided to put me in Facebook jail today. Not only did I get in Facebook jail that I can't share the show links anymore for a while, but
Wow.
then
God.
somebody actually went and reported my post for the promo of the show saying that I'm not me. So tonight I am somebody. I'm anonymous. I guess I maybe I should just take myself out of the stream. But here we go.
I'm kind of looking real quick. I'm kind of like really trying to see what you look like. Cause what if you aren't you? I want because they got some weird kind of stuff out there on Facebook now with these guys and girls are like battery operated and stuff like that. And I don't know, Miss G, you're looking. I don't know. You look. I don't know. Is that you really?
Artificial.
Yeah, I don't know if that. Oh, it's you.
Is
Oh,
it?
it's you. It's you. Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Yep.
ma'am.
That's right. All right. Well, everybody, we have a great show for you tonight. I know, again, a lot of people have been asking me for some topics where we would bring in other psychics.
Yeah.
A lot of people, well, I mean, a lot of people call in and they want, when I do interviews, they'll call in and get readings from me. I don't really like doing the readings on my show. I like talking about everything else, but we do get some guests that are willing to do some readings, and we've got one tonight. But not only is she a psychic medium, she has an amazing, amazing story as well. And she is the author of, and this is definitely something I want to talk about tonight. George, have you heard of the St. Albans Asylum?
I have not.
No?
No.
Oh my gosh, George. Now I got to teach you about aliens, Bigfoot,
Okay, hold on.
abduction, and St.
I'm a paranormal investigator, but I'm willing to learn more. How's that sound?
That'll work. But
All right.
our guest tonight actually wrote the book, The Ghosts of St. Albans Sanatorium. So this place is one of the places that's been on my bucket list. I have been to so many haunted locations over the years. That has always been that and Waverly Hills. Those are two places that, even though they're investigated to death, I absolutely love, love, love to hear the stories from these places that come out. It is so amazing. So, for the first hour, we're going to talk to our guest, Pat O'Keefe, and she is actually an oracle. And for people who don't understand what that means, it's someone who receives messages from a divine source, and she's a medium. She also represents the Full Moon Caravan, which is a troupe of psychics and mediums. And she's also an author and a photographer. So again, we're going to be talking about her journey a little bit, as well as the Ghosts of St. Albans. And then after that, during the second hour, for those of you who are interested in coming on to have a mini reading, so we'll do first of all, Pat, when you do your readings, because for me, sometimes the people will want like a one question reading. Sometimes certain psychics, they will just have somebody come on and they'll just give a message of whatever they pick up. How does it work for you? So we can let the listeners know for the second hour.
For me, because I do receive messages. I mean, I'm basically a messenger. I will receive a message for someone. They can ask a question, and the answer that they receive is at the core of that question. I always tell people it's not what you think you want to know; it's what God knows that you need to know. And I've never had anyone disappointed because it gets right to, like I said, the core of what's hurting them, what's confusing them, the core of their question.
Wow.
Nice. Okay, so for everybody during the second hour, we will be taking some questions. So again, it will just be, either one question or she'll give you a message. Unfortunately, that's all the time that we'll have, for her tonight. But if for some reason you want to book a reading with her, we'll give the information, and feel free if you want to get more information or have more questions for her, you can definitely book a reading with her. But thank you so much, Pat, for coming on the show. So nice to have you on the show.
Thank you.
Got a lot going on there with you, huh?
Thanks. But thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Nice, nice. Now, I know originally you were supposed to come on with one of your good friends who's also with your troupe, and she's actually a palmist. So she actually reads palms. So we were going to try to, have a few people send in pictures of their palms and get some messages that way. But unfortunately, her daughter fell ill and she's in the hospital. So we want to, just keep her in our prayers tonight, because I definitely think her daughter will be just fine, but she has pneumonia, she's special needs, and so they had to actually intubate her so that they can help get her better. And so, of course, we wanted for Jennifer to be able to. She was still, of all things, she was going to try to make the show, and I said, absolutely not. No, we want her to stay with her daughter. That we will absolutely have both of you back. Maybe just do a reading show, talk a little bit more about your caravan, all these different things. But again, I just wanted to put a shout out to her and, let her know that she's in our thoughts and prayers, as well as her daughter.
Absolutely.
All right. So again, welcome everybody. Thank you, Kara, for sharing that. Hey, Lori, nice to see you. Amanda, Jeanette, nice to see you. Looks like you're new as well to the stream.
Now, did you say on the second hour? I'll make sure I have this straight too. On the second hour, when you're taking questions for this young lady right here, do they have to come on live, or are you going to take questions by them typing it in?
No, we're going to have. If you want to have the mini reading, you do need to
show your
come
face.
In live. If you are on Facebook, you are able to get in. If you're on your computer, all you got to do is click the link in the comment section. All you got to do is scroll down. You'll see it. We'll put it up multiple times throughout the broadcast. If you're on your cell phone, what you'll need to do is go to the BLiveTV.tv app on your phone, download it, or you can click on the link. It'll prompt you to download it. then you can join in as a guest, and we'll bring you on. Sorry,
That
hold
was,
on.
that's all right. That was a great question by me, by your co-host. I just want you to know that. Uh-oh. You okay?
Sorry about that.
Wow. You okay? Seriously, that was scary.
Ooh, that is good. That hurts. That is not
Oh
nice.
gosh, honey.
A little Pepsi cures everything. That's all good. All
Yeah.
right,
All right.
we're good. I'm gonna make it. I'm a trooper. All right,
All right.
so let's see what we say. Pat says prayers to her daughter. Oh, thanks a lot, Pat.
Absolutely.
She'll definitely appreciate that. So, all right, Pat. So let's talk a little bit about you because you have a very, very interesting background. You come from a long history of mediums, a very interesting personal story of how you kind of learned about your abilities. So let's kind of start there, and we'll kind of progress throughout the show from there.
Well, I always say that if someone, especially my age, which is a woman of a certain age, as they put it, says, well, we can trace my lineage, 5 or 6 generations back, it becomes very difficult to do that. And the reason is because past my grandmother's age, to do so was to be one of the others. And the thing that you did not want to be in society was ostracized. And so if you had any special abilities, you kind of kept it to yourself. My grandmother and great grandmother were what we call granny women and true granny women in the Appalachians. And my great grandmother was very spiritual. And she prayed. She had received no education at all. She was way up in the mountains where a woman wasn't educated because she was raised to have a family and to raise that family. So she would pray every day for God to let her read the Bible. Just let her read the Bible. And she prayed to God that if he would let her read the Bible, it would be the only book that she would ever read. And she woke up one day and my great grandmother could read the Bible. And it was the
Wow.
only book that she ever read. Now, here's the funny part. My great grandfather, whom, we called Pap loved those old westerns, and he would bring those books in. And if Granny would find those books, she'd burn those books. And finally, one day, Pap said to Nan, he said, listen, Nan, he said, you're the one that promised God. He said, I didn't. Anyway, because he had gotten an eighth grade education, which was, quite a lot of education for the day. Okay, fast forward. I was born into a family. I was very lucky. My mother was a palmist, and my grandmother was a very strong medium. She was a medium, and her tool of choice was the spirit board. They used to call them spirit boards. And I'll tell you a story about her. One day she came out and she was really mad at the board. And she said, I'm never working with that old thing again. And I said, well, Granny, what's wrong? And she said, Pat, that thing told me that I was going to fail my driver's test. Now, you have to understand, my grandmother did not drive. My grandmother was a terror on the road who should never have been on Leash Society. But she had taken the test 4 times. Read that, 4 times. Lewisburg, West Virginia. So she was mad at the board because the board had told her that she would fail yet again, but she would get her license. So you have to understand, this is Lewisburg, West Virginia back in the day. So she goes to take her test. She fails the test. Of course, it's the same state trooper giving her the test again. They
Ah.
drive back around, and he tells her, Mrs. Roberts, I am so sorry, but you have failed this test again, but I am tired of seeing you here. I'm going going to give you your license. So the board was right once again. It was a
Wow.
tool for her. I don't recommend the board for just anyone. My grandmother is probably one of the strongest psychics I have ever met in my life. I mean, she was very, very powerful. Her persona was powerful, powerful. Her energy was powerful. But one more story. This is my sister. My sister is retired from the U.S. military army, and she was supposed to go to the Sinai for a peacekeeping mission in 1981, I believe. And she had a friend, Christy McClure from South Dakota. She got a message from her spirit guide: don't get on the plane or you will die.
Hmm.
And she thought that it was simply for her, just a message for her. So believe it or not, I mean, God works things out for us in the strangest ways. And anybody in the U.S. military will know that it doesn't work this way, but it worked this way for my sister. She was the assistant to the camp commander, and she walked in and said, I want to go to Hondo Land. They used to call Honduras Hondo Land. She said, I want to go to Hondo Land, and Christine McClary's fiance is in the Sinai. Can we change tour of duty? And her boss said, yes, do the paperwork, and I'll do that for you. A year later, that plane filled with U.S. military landed, and Christine McClary was sitting in the seat my sister would have occupied. They landed in Newfoundland, Gander, Newfoundland, and when that plane took off, it blew into 1,000 pieces.
Oh man.
Yeah, the official reasoning for that was ice on the wings, but people on the ground said it simply exploded, and there are still people today that think it's one of the first large mass casualties of terrorism. But what was really interesting about that is, of course, all the paperwork is on file. So they come and get my sister and they put her in a room like a war room, and they make her sit there. She said, I was terrified, Pat. She said the lowest ranking military personnel in that room was a major. So that she literally sat
Wow.
in the seat, yes, all night
Wow.
long until they cleared her and they let her go. So, really interesting. And one more thing, I was going to go, I'm such a big hippie now, but I was going to go into the military because both of my sisters are military and they're retired from military. So I go, decide not to, but they really try to strong arm me. They want me to go into the intelligence component of the military, and they want me to do the very MOS that they took their Stargate people from, which was really interesting. I don't know. I don't know if there was some sort of test that people were given as they were, going through the process or what. But I found that kind of interesting. But there's all kinds of stories in my family about this sort of thing. So, but the first discarnate spirit, and I'm sure you can relate to this, is when I was a child, and my father was Air Force, and we were in Fairbanks, Alaska, and I saw my mother float into the room. Of course, it was her astral projection. I was about 3.5, 4 years old. It's my very first memory. And she looked just like her. And I saw her come over and I saw her above her body and just float down into her body. And so that was my first interaction. I was very lucky that I had the two women that I had who raised me, because I didn't have to worry. I didn't have to ask questions that weren't answered, yes, or ask questions that made me feel like was a devil child, like so many of my colleagues that I talked with who are truly gifted. They've all had to go through this. And also, don't forget, everybody watches TV, and we were talking about this earlier, and it looks fun and it looks exciting. But think about this. I mean, I woke up in the middle of the night a few years ago, and I saw a little girl that had been murdered, who was one of my daughter's very dear friends. And she just sat there and she was just looking at me. For someone like us, as a child, you wake up and you've got people in your room, and it's dark and it's scary. It's not all fun and games, because other psychics can tell you, and mediums, it becomes a path that we follow. It's a very spiritual path. We're very connected to spirit because of it. Because not only are the dead coming to us to relay messages to the living, but the living are coming to us. And it's not all fun and games. There's a lot of tears. There's a lot of rejoicing. There's a lot of emotion. So anyway, that's kind of my story. On the other end, I am a professional. I hold a master's degree, and I just mentioned that only because from a bona fide university, by the way. I would say that. And I just mentioned that because a lot of people, you know this, think of us as being nut jobs that are living in trailer parks, that, our IQs are, subpar. I promise you that is not the truth. I mean, we come from all walks of life, all levels of IQ. It's simply something that we're born with. When we talk about the paranormal, it's something beyond normal. So people like us simply have abilities that other people don't have, or they haven't exercised the muscle. Because I know the more you do this, the more comfortable you become. Somebody asked me, "Can everyone do this?" I don't think so. I know that's not popular. I'm sorry, but here's the thing: not everybody can play tennis. Now, most people can pick up a tennis racket, right? You can go out and you play tennis, you learn the rules of how to play tennis. And if you're a great player, you get better. But there are also people who really just, for whatever handicap they have, they cannot take to the tennis court. And I really feel that that handicap is sometimes a willful need to be blind because of the things that I've already told you about, the waking up in the middle of the night, the seeing people. Now, unlike Christine, I'm sorry, I don't see people who have committed suicide and who are in that state of disrepair, so to speak. What I see is the person as they were, and then they will tell me what happened, or I'll hear the way that they killed themselves, or they'll show me what we call shadow death, which is if you've died of a heart attack, you start getting that shortness of breath and the pressure in your chest. If somebody died of esophageal cancer, you'll start rubbing your throat, which is why I always tell people to watch what we do, because we often channel their energy. It's not just that we give messages, but we often absolutely meld energetically with that spirit. And so we may have their mannerisms. One time I was doing this during a reading, and the woman said, "Do you realize what you're doing?" And I was like, "No." And I looked down, my hands were doing this. She said, "He was a concert pianist." So it's things like that that, yes, always, if you go to a meeting, and I'm sure that you all have talked about this too, but this is one of my favorite subjects, and I know I'm rattling on, sorry,
Oh,
but
it's fine.
that I tell my clients a couple things. Number one, don't tell your reader everything. Ask them the
Right
question.
on.
Right on. That's right. Exactly. Because I'm sitting there, and every second reading I have to say, "Don't tell me that. Don't tell me that." And the reason is because I have to go into the spiritual realm. I have to go into the ether spiritually myself. So if you ground me by putting things into my head, so all of a sudden everything's running around there, and I'm I can be very logical at times, and very scattered at others, but during a reading, and all of a sudden, instead of just giving it over to spirit and receiving messages and trusting those messages, now it's a puzzle, and my mind is trying to figure it out. So so anyway, look for that. Also, look for someone who talks so fast that you're not able to process it. I'm sorry, it should be a conversation between you and the person that you are, your client, or the person that is seeking answers. Now, I'm sure that most people are like me too. I have certain things that I do for free because my spirit guide. Remember the person you were telling me about earlier, but we can't say it on air? Okay,
Right.
one of the first, yes, places that you went to read. I had an epiphany, what I call an epiphany about her. And it's where with me, and I'm sure it's the same with you, it's like you have been spiritually taken somewhere else. And I was shown this picture of her, and I saw her as a young woman, and she was very gifted, and I saw that. And then it was like the picture of Dorian Gray. And at the end of it, I was told, always give more than you take. Always give more than you take. Because this is a spiritual path for me and for many of my colleagues also. It's not as much about the money. And I struggled with that because I'm director of marketing and public relations for a college. It's not about the money, but I struggle with that. I prayed about that. I meditate a lot, and I was given another epiphany, which is like a message from God. And I was in that somewhere else, and I saw these two energies, and I saw them come together, and one was stronger than the other, and so they came together, and when they separated, the weaker one was now stronger, and I was told reciprocity. Always give more than you take, but there has to be reciprocity in the universe.
I
It's always, yes, absolutely. There has to be balance. And so
yes.
you literally, in fact, I have a couple of things that I use now in my readings. You literally give your energy, and you can give your energy to the point that you become ill yourself. So you have to be very careful about that. So anyway, that's that information in a nutshell. Do you have anything else?
I have a
Um,
question, if you don't mind, real quick. I mean, I'm listening to you, and like I said, I'm here. I am a student again. Um, the connections that you have and what you do is beautiful, and it's. I wish there was something that I can really take from it a little bit. But when you're saying about having connection, I notice when I'm out investigating or if I feel like I'm connecting with somebody, I don't get anything but my fingers start to move really fast on me. It like my wife will know if I'm connecting with somebody from the other side or not. But my fingers start doing this. Is what does that? Is that just a nervous habit that I get, or is that just like a the way I'm connecting? Is that just for me so I feel comfortable? Does that make sense?
that may well be your spirit guide. If it's
Okay.
consistent like that
Yeah.
every time, and your spirit guide is often the first man on the scene. They're like the emergency crew. They're there to protect you, and so it may be if this is consistent, then it would seem to me that this may very well be your spirit guide who is connecting with your energy, and
Okay.
you, like I said, it's almost like a mind meld. Do that Vulcan mind meld.
Well,
So you do share energy with other energies when we do this. This is, and you know this, when we connect, when someone sits in front of me, I am for their particular loved one. It's not me that's bringing that person here. I, I'm
Right.
not the person. It's them. It's their energy. I mean, now don't get me wrong. I may wake up in the middle of the night and see people who, but those are spirits who are just wondering if that makes sense, and they're drawn to my energy. But but for a specific energy, it's been my experience that you bring that energy to you. So I would say that for you, that is your spirit guide. And if you haven't made connection with that energy, I would definitely do that or
okay.
try to start that process.
Okay, because I notice when I'm on investigations, like I'm trying to. I'm sorry about that, Christina.
No, you're fine.
When I take off and I go by myself to wherever we're at on investigations, I start doing this and I start walking around like I'm connecting, and then as soon as I stop that, like I find a room, it'll just completely stop, and then I stop at that location to talk to or at least try to figure out what's going on in that one room. But I'm amazed by you 100% right now. So thank you so much.
Well,
Well, what's interesting, George, is a lot of people when they investigate with me notice the exact same thing.
What's
They will
that?
always notice when I'm walking around when I am picking things up and I'm connecting. I do the same thing with my fingers,
You do?
and I didn't even realize because it's not I'm not consciously doing it. It is just something that subconsciously that I do. But I've had it pointed out to me a lot over the years.
Right.
And especially somebody who I really trusted was the co-founder and my best friend, who we've been friends forever and started our group together. Uh, she would always say, "What are you picking up on?"
Right.
And I'd say, if I lied to her, and I'd say, "Oh, nothing," because we'd be like at her house or something, and she'd say, "Don't lie to me. I know you did." I'm like, "How do you know?" And she's like, "You start doing this thing with your fingers."
What do you
And
do?
she's like, "I always know."
I've never been I apologize. I've never investigated with you ever, and I didn't. So you do that? You do something like that?
Yes, yes.
That's wicked. I'm sorry. That makes me feel better because we just
No, well, I mean, that was interesting that you said. That's why I had to bring it up. I mean, see, we
okay.
learn things new all the time too. But that's something that, like I said, unconsciously I do when I'm just interacting and I'm connecting. Don't even realize I'm doing it. But
Exactly.
over the years, people have just pointed it out to me. They'll say, "Oh, what is that thing that you do with your fingers?" And I'm like,
Wow.
talking about my fingers, and they're like, "Yeah, when you're connecting or whatever." And I'm like, to me, I'm just walking through. I'm not, again, I don't remember doing anything like that. But they've even caught me on video. So I know that I do it. It's just I don't remember doing it. So I definitely think subconsciously it is just, it's like a cue for us when we're connecting. It's kind of also a way that I keep myself kind of in that meditative state when I don't want to say going into a trance, but when I'm going into the self up and inviting whatever's there to interact with me, when I'm getting that communication, that's kind of my way that I keep grounded and I keep the connection. But because again, if I go into a different room and something changes, their energy changes, it'll completely drop and I lose it,
Wow.
and then it have to walk around again.
Well,
So
I'm glad. I feel I know this is her show, but I do appreciate what you just told me because I don't even know when I'm doing it. My wife is the one that says, "Hey, you're connecting with something." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And I look down and my fingers are going, and then when it won't stop until I feel like, all right, wait a second, it stopped. She'll tell me it stopped, and then I stop, and that's when I start investigating right there. So it's kind of thanks for bringing that up, Christina.
you're welcome. So Sharon says, "Can we ask questions?" You absolutely. If you just have a question about psychic abilities or sorry about Pat herself, you absolutely can. You can ask them in chat. If you have a specific question that you're wanting to answer as far as a reading, or you would like a mini reading tonight, then during the second hour, you'll need to click on the link that I put in the comment section, and you can connect that way. Come on the stream and ask away. Lori is saying, no, not everyone is a psychic medium. There are just certain ones of us, I believe, that we're chosen ones who were born with more than one ability. And I agree. And, you've kind of said, Pat, a little bit of how you feel about it. I do believe that this is something that we are all born with. Absolutely, we are all born with these abilities. Now, again, I do believe that there's a lot of things that play into it. Again, your surroundings, your family life, your belief system. You were surrounded by people who were very aware of their abilities, even though it was not something you could be public with. Um, they didn't hide it from you, or it wasn't something that you needed to be afraid of because you didn't understand, opposed to me and many others. But for as long as I've been doing this, and I'm 51. I've said it many times, and I've had these abilities as long as I can remember. Even now, I'm getting a lot of people who are saying that their abilities, as the veil starts to thin, our consciousness is we're gaining ascension in consciousness. We're starting to notice, at least for me, that I'm getting a lot of clients who are starting to realize they have abilities. Now, the thing is that when I'm able to talk with them, I'm able to find out that these people actually had abilities and experiences when they were younger. But again, we were in a time when everybody would say that all little children had imaginary friends. So not much was given to anything that we said. And so usually by the time in my research, by the time that a child gets into like school, and they usually will have a block up unless there's some kind of either intermittent or intermediary issues where maybe say their family was supportive and didn't tell them, oh, it's all in your imagination. You might have had a supportive family. Like me, I don't, to be absolutely honest, I have no idea why my abilities are so strong. I do know that on my father's side, there's generations of us that have these abilities. But again, the more that I interview people and the more that people are becoming a little bit more honest and open about their experiences, we realize there's a whole lot of people that have had paranormal experiences or experiences with paranormal abilities that somehow between childhood and adulthood somehow shut down. And now all of a sudden they're activating again. Now I do believe, that we have abilities, but again, we talked a little bit earlier, Pat, some of us seem to have similar abilities and similar stories and backgrounds. George and I have very similar experiences and backgrounds that link us. Some are completely different, but I believe that we all have abilities, because even when people would say, oh, I knew something bad was going to happen, or I knew that person wasn't a good person, and they'll say, oh, how'd you know that? Oh, I just had that gut feeling or that intuition. Well, again, that is an ability. That isn't it that we are born with, and for me, is a very natural ability. But again, because psychic abilities, the title is such an umbrella, and it's had such negative, that I think that a lot of people would rather say, oh, it's my intuition or my gut feeling, than, oh, I might actually have some abilities myself. So, like, what are your thoughts?
Well,
Well,
my
my
thoughts
thoughts
are,
are,
I'm,
I'm,
I am a
I
reader,
am,
and
and
when you, whoa, I've got echo. Okay, and when you're using the term all, that's extremely broad. In my experience, there are people who truly either, and there's not enough, scientific research and data to quantify this, but may have abilities, but they're so like repressed that they don't
Right.
come. But here's the other thing: there are psychopaths, and the psychopaths that I have connected with are soulless. They are soulless, and that is why they have the ability to hurt small babies. I mean, and not even blink, because they are totally cut off from any form of human emotion. Shrink psychiatrists, psychologists call them the walking dead, because they truly have no emotion. Um, they There's no connection. There's none. So, in the broader context of saying all, I can't say that. I would say most may have, but there's just not enough research. Right now, they're doing rudimentary research on people like us. What are common denominators? One of them, of course, is your grandmother, your aunt, your sister. Does anybody exhibit these kinds of traits? Is there a family history? Another is Rh negative blood. Um, I'm a negative blood. That comprises less than 6% of the world's population. The total for Rh negative blood is, I think, 14%. So in the world, it's a rather rare blood type, and what it means is that there's not a lot of protein around the blood.
Right.
Negative blood is considered the bloodline of the gods because it's the purest form. It doesn't have any proteins around it at all. And so what they think is, of course, everything is energy. And so the less proteins you have around your platelets, if you will, then you may be able to feel those vibrations a little bit more. I don't know. Like I said, all of this is interesting and it's new. There's all kinds of others. ADD. They're looking at ADD as, and I definitely have ADD, but anyway, they're looking at ADD as a possible correlation. All of these things for me as a medium. I have Scorpio and Neptune, or Neptune and Scorpio. I forget which way that goes, but that is the astrological sign of a medium. So all of these things they're looking at, but there's still no answers. What I find interesting is there is some research going on right now with the Rh negative factor, which I find is kind of fascinating. I simply think it's fascinating in that it's relatively new to me as a as an area of kind of research and interest. So,
Can I ask
but
you a question?
I can't say no. I cannot across the board say that everyone has abilities. Certainly, psychopaths and those high on the sociopathic traits. Um, when I connect with them, I'm sorry, and other people, Christina, I'm sure you've done this. When you've connected with that person that's so cold and it's dark and
Oh, yeah.
it's like a wind and it's scary. Let me tell you, for somebody like me, that is scary. And I will, if I have to interact with that person, I'm very, very careful with that person. The Indians had a name, and I cannot remember, for people like this, but they said, do not look them in the eye and back away. Now, here's something I found interesting about this, because I find psychopathy very interesting, because they are soulless people, but are they're like golems, they have the form of a person. But when you have to go and practice crying over and they go to a mirror and they start to emulate emotions, so that if they find themselves in a situation where they have to show grief, then they know exactly what to do. They watch someone and then they emulate. That's what they do. But so yeah, I think that they kind of throw the monkey wrench in. Others, I think, may repress these abilities, um, but we don't have enough data yet to say across the board that everyone does. So that's where I come from on that.
Okay.
And yeah.
I have a question
Hey,
for you.
yeah, question.
Yeah,
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, yeah. About 20 years ago, I actually had a couple of grand mal seizures, and that's when I noticed where I was able to be who I am today. 20 years ago. Now, before that, I could see spirits at my house in South San Francisco, but after my grand mal seizures, two of them, that's when something opened up in my head. Do you believe that's when it all started for me, where I was connected? I felt like I was more connected having a few seizures in my life that it actually opened something up here. Could that have done anything?
Absolutely, one of the greatest modern psychics, and Lord, let me remember his name. I think he was Dutch. Anyway, he fell off a ladder.
Uh huh.
Before then, he had absolutely no ability at
Right.
all. Fell off a ladder, hit his head, and all of a sudden, oh, it will come to me. But I mean, he was a great psychic. In fact, back in the day, even a few years ago in the 30s, you would have sponsors if you were like an artist, or even a psychic. And so, Peter Herkos, I believe was his name.
Okay.
So anyway, he had a very rich sponsor from the United States, and he couldn't find his daughter. And he called him, and Peter Herkos told him exactly where she was, and she was
Wow.
dead. And he had to
Wow.
tell him that. But because he was the messenger that had to deliver that message, he lost his sponsor and his friend, which is
Wow.
unfortunate. It does happen. And that's another thing that people don't think about, is people can dread to see you coming, because in their minds you can become the Grim Reaper, simply because you have had to deliver a not so positive message.
Hmm. Wow. Thank you.
Yeah, it certainly could have started like that for you.
Huh.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, Kimmy's. Oh, Bill is saying share the live feed, get the word out. Actually, we are asking everybody watching the live stream to share that. I got it out there in quite a few big platforms before Facebook so nicely decided to put me in Facebook jail and block me and tell me I wasn't who I said I was and all these good things. So you guys get to get this information out. So feel free to share the live stream. It will automatically archive after the live show. So if you miss any part of it, or anybody on your in your group or on your page wants to see it, it'll repeat from the beginning. Kimmy says it knocks the calcification off the pineal gland. And now we also see a lot of abilities, George, and we've talked a little bit about this privately as well. But when certain people either have a severe illness or have some kind of traumatic accident, injury where they have a near death experience, we are also seeing all kinds of reports coming back from people after they've had what they believe to be a near death experience. And they come back, and now all of a sudden they have all these abilities. Now, I will even say, as a teenager, I had mine. I actually found a book on witchcraft when I was a teenager. I thought it was going to get rid of it. Was a spell to bind your abilities. So I thought, perfect. I didn't ask for these things. This works. This will be great. So I did the whole little spell and everything. And it kind of scared me a little bit because I didn't know, I came from a Catholic background, and doing any kind of spells was like satanic witchcraft.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything like I know now. So I did that. And actually, I didn't see anything for quite a while. And then eventually, little by little, started coming back, but it was nothing bad. So I'm like, oh, I can deal with just seeing the spirits, just don't want anything bad. And then I had a bad car accident and I had a full on, a near death experience where I was told I had to come back the whole 9 yards. And I will tell you, when I came back, there has never been another option or chance for me to try to block or bind or stop anything. Not only did it come back, but it came back like 100 times stronger. My precog dreams were super strong and super accurate. They were happening like right away. My empathic side of my abilities was off the chart. I was, lecturing and doing things, and it was so hard because I couldn't be around big, large groups of people because I didn't know enough about grounding, so I would go in there and, me, I love to hug everybody. I'm a hugger. And so I would go and hug them. And if they had a great day, oh, it was like an energy of positivity. If they had a horrible day, oh, I felt horrible. If they had a fight before, hand, I hugged them and felt like punching somebody and didn't realize why. I
Yeah,
was a mess.
yeah,
So,
I get it.
a lot of different things can bring that around, I think.
You know what I just found out about my mom just told me a couple weeks ago. And sorry about this, real quick. Is my mom's side is from Palermo, Sicily, and I just found this out because my mom's like really in tune now. She wants to know what I'm doing now. She's interested in what I'm doing now. Is my grandmother was a gypsy, and she used to practice a bunch of stuff, and
Yeah.
from the teas to whatever. So my mom now is more open to what I'm doing now, and it's actually she's giving me her blessing because I want to know why things I can do or see or smell, and like you were saying, not everybody's not gifted. I want to know why the heck I can able to do this, and that's why I asked the young lady right there: was it the seizures, or is it just in my blood, or is it just I'm, with a near death experience? What was it? Because I'm starting to say, why am I able to do all this stuff that I can do? It's just crazy. So,
Well, your grandmother, one of the things we mentioned is looking in your family tree to see if there's anybody with gifts. But your grandmother would have practiced strega, which is Italian witchcraft. I mean,
okay, I didn't want to say it. Yes, my mom told me she did. She
yeah,
practiced
yeah,
witchcraft in Sicily, in
right.
Palermo. Yeah,
But you have to understand. And look, I'm a universalist. Let me put that out there. And I
yeah,
believe in many, many paths. All right. And someone's spell is another person's prayer, and people can get upset about that, but that's the way it is because
right,
you're putting a plea out into the universe to the universal source for something.
Right.
So, so that's what your grandmother did in her way, using herbs and using
yep,
probably, many natural things around her and in her universe because that was her universe.
right.
Uh, the same way that my grandmother, even though she was a diehard Christian, you got to remember she was up in the Appalachian Mountains. But this little granny woman, when I was about 6 years old, I had a big mole on my finger. She took a chicken wing and I remember her mumbling some words over that, right? Now, I
Right.
have no idea what she did with a chicken wing, but in a couple of weeks, that mole was gone. And
Wow.
and that's what I'm saying. She would have, it would have been the same sort of thing that your grandmother did. So it sounds to me like you've got several things going on. Number one, you had a near-death experience. Number two, you had a natural inclination to this because your grandmother did. I guarantee you, if she was practicing that path, then she was definitely open to many more possibilities than most paths were as far as these kinds of abilities. Just she was probably gifted herself.
Wow. Gosh, I wish she was still here. Thank you. Wow.
Well, and again, this is something that a lot of people, of that age didn't speak about, to their families and things like that. So it's not strange that you might not have known, or it might not have been, discussed a lot along the way. I mean, again, I found out as an adult that, my whole we've got like multiple generations of high-ranking Freemasons in my family who used to do rituals in order to stay in the rich and the powerful, and we're part of the elite and all these different things, that here I've been researching all these years and had no clue that they directly correlated to me. But even my ex-mother-in-law, when we talk about it, she was a devout Catholic. We went to church every Sunday. We helped the priest do whatever he needed to do. We helped feed people, whatever needed to be done. We were so connected with them that the priest came a couple times a month to our house after church for dinner. So you knew how connected we were. So devout Catholics. But my ex-mother-in-law was from Mexico, and she was considered a Mexican medicine woman. And she actually practiced Santeria, which, again, when people hear Santeria, they think of voodoo and, dark magic and all of this thing. But again, for every type of magic or things that there is a good and there is a bad. So it's out there. It depends on what you're doing. And I can remember people that were working. We managed a vineyard, and people who worked in the fields back then, they weren't documented. So they would just come and they would work during time. So they had no insurance. They weren't legal to be here. So if they got hurt, there was no taking your kid or yourself to the doctor or to the hospital, because that was a great way to get deported. So we would see all kinds of people that would come at night for her to do all these things. And she would make all these little potions in the kitchen, and she'd have it all ready, and they'd get there and she would pray, and she'd have this little altar, and she'd crack an egg. And like, I was just completely just mystified, because I'm like, well, I can see things, but I don't know any of this. Like, where does this all come from? And I remember one that stuck out really, really in my mind was this woman brought this young child, and the child had to have been about 5 or 6 months old. And the baby was just crying and crying. And she said, she won't eat. She won't take her bottle. She doesn't, just nothing else. She does is cry. And my mother-in-law went and looked, and she touched the top of the baby's head where the soft spot was, and it was indented. And she's like, oh, I know what the problem is. She went and she mixed the stuff up. She put the drink in her mouth. She put her mouth over the baby's soft spot and slowly started kind of sucking, where you could hear the gurgling of the water in her mouth. And she did it for a few minutes, and then she spit the water out. And you would see that the baby's, from dehydration, would pop back up. Baby would stop crying. I even watched her set his leg. He had broken his leg in the field. He fell off a bulldozer. He broke his leg, and she said it with nothing but prayer and having him drink this concoction that she made. It was amazing. So, I mean, believe me, I think that there are all different, paths out there. I think that, again, before we ever had traditional Western medicine doctors, all we had was the natural herbs of the land and, tribes and people from way back when. That's all they had to use, and that's exactly what they did. So, I mean, again, there's a lot of different religions that, even though you may be very religious or very Catholic, you can still have different ways, and it doesn't mean you're a bad person. And I love when you had said, I want to talk on this before we go to the second hour, start asking questions. But we were talking about interesting interviews that people have had in different religions and the way they think and different things. And you told me about a vampire that you were able to do, that you actually did a reading on. And you didn't know she was a vampire originally. You kind of figured this out through doing a past life regression reading. So let's talk a little bit about that, because a lot of people say, oh, vampires, no such thing. No such thing. So let's talk about that.
I will tell you that they're extremely rare. And this is the first one that I had the privilege of meeting. I met this woman. She's a historian. She's working on her PhD. And I met her, and I didn't like her. And the reason I didn't like her is her heart was just protected to the point that I had to push to energetically to get close to her, so to speak, or close to her energy. I didn't like her. That's usually the sign of a really cold-hearted person. And so I met her again, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to push. And it was like I got past that, and I felt some warmth. And I said, would you like a reading? And she said, well, I don't know. She said, the last reader who tried to read for me ended up in a fetal position in the floor. And I told her, I said, I don't think I'll have that problem. I said, I'm an old soul too. And she said, okay, we'll see. So she sat down and I looked at her and I was like, and I looked at her again and I was connecting because she was open at that point. She allowed herself to be open. And every lifetime, this 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 is how I knew. Every lifetime she looked exactly like she does in this lifetime. Exactly. I've never seen that before. We always look different. And and I saw her lifetimes. It was just like everything collapsing. And she went well past the Egyptian age. You know, everybody's always interested in that. And for some reason, that seems to be the final landing point. But with her, I saw all the way back to molten rock. Her energy, her spirit has been here since the beginning of what we know as Earth. And it was just really interesting. So, of course, I looked at her and I said, oh my gosh, I said, you're a vampire.
Wow.
And she was really shocked. And she said, yes, I am. And I said, you're an energy vampire. I said, you know, in the truest sense, you are a vampire because every lifetime you look exactly like you do now. And she said, yes. And she said, and I remember them all. And
Wow.
I said, yes, you do. I mean, because everything is with her now. And she carries this huge burden. I mean, the energy that she has, she's trying to be a good person. And the message that God gave me for her was, you're a good person. Understand that. You need to know that. That is your message. And she started crying. And she said, I can really hurt people. And I've accidentally hurt people before. And I said, I know that. But God knows that you try not to take too much energy from people. Now there are energy vampires. They're like little vampirelings, or you know what I'm saying. They're like babies in comparison. I mean, she is like if you were doing a Anne Rice movie. What was the name of the Queen of the Vampires? That is her energy. That's how ancient she is. But now this is so poignant. When I was talking with her, I told her, I said, "You're missing him in this lifetime, aren't you?" And I mean, it was a cry fest. And I don't think that she has cried for decades. But I told her, I said, you're missing him. And I said, because you were cavalier with love with him in your past life. He's been with you through lifetimes. But in the last lifetime, his death could be directly attributable to you. And she said, yes. So anyway, I said, I'm sorry, but I don't think you'll find him in this lifetime. And that's another thing, people. Don't ask if you don't want to know, okay? Everything isn't, I'm not the
Peaches and
guru.
cream. Yeah.
I just give messages that you have to have. So I told her, I said, but it is karmic. Everything is being righted. You know about that you will live another lifetime and he will be back with you. That I have been told by spirit. And so she simply has to balance because she was cavalier with love, and that's something that none of us can afford to do. I have one more story because it is so important. If you have love, treat it gingerly, engulf it with your arms, nourish it, um, because everything is always in this precarious balance. I don't mean you should go around and be afraid of it, but you do need to understand it. And so I had this beautiful young woman. She was probably maybe 28 to 32 years of age. And she came to me and she said, am I going to find love in this lifetime? And I saw her past life and I said, no, you won't. I said, Spirit has said you will not find love in this lifetime. I said, you were beautiful in your last lifetime and you tore a man away from his family. And once you did, it wasn't because you had your heart for him. You wanted to do it because you could. And as soon as you did, you left the man. So you
Wow.
destroyed the man and his family. And this is karma, which is just a writing. It's not a punishment. It's not. It's just a balancing, always a balance in the universe. Like you mentioned, even in religions. I think Santeria gets such a bad rap because it's so powerful. The negative energy of it is can be manifested into such a narrow beam, if you want, of energy, and people are fearful of that. And people also forget that voodoo is a mixture of, of the island religion and Catholicism. Marie Laveau, she went religiously to mass, and then would hold voodoo rituals outside of the church.
Yes.
Um, well, it all paths are powerful. All have light and all have darkness. And if you don't believe that, I've read the Bible. I'm on my fourth time, word for word. And yes, I go right through the begettings and the begottens in Genesis. And one thing you will learn is, because I had this woman tell me that I was evil because I give messages and all of them are not positive. All of them, life is like that, right?
Right.
And so she told me that only God only gave positive messages. I said, "Have you read the Bible? Have you read the Bible? Have you read the place where God told the Israelites to wipe out an entire nation, right down to the last goat that stood?" No, there are messages. Some of them are not. Um, how should I put this? Like some of these shows that you see where everything's ha ha ha. Life's not like that. And I will tell you, my messenger is an angel. I don't have conversations. An angel is a warrior, a soldier. And here's something that was interesting too, because I was told not to like watch other people, okay? That everyone walks their own path, that I have to walk my path. So don't watch someone else and expect to walk the same path that they walk. So you're going to think I'm silly, but I was told that my angelic guide was one of the nine choir directors of heaven. So I thought they were musical. Yes, laugh at me now. It was only it was a couple of years ago now, but a couple of years after I was told that, that I read the nine choir directors of heaven are the archangels. So that was interesting, and because I would tell people, oh, I have an angelic guide, and I might get a musical message for you. I know, laugh, laugh.
No, actually, no. I'm not even laughing. I think it's very I like what you're talking about. I like what you're saying because it makes
And
sense.
and and here's another thing. Here's another thing, folks. Don't seek a do not seek a guru. I've actually had people try to pay me to be a guru. Think about this.
A
What
guru.
I tell people, you too, I know. What I tell people is go find God yourself. Guess what?
Yep.
All you do is look. If God is, a connection with God is what you choose, you can't do it completely by sitting on a bench in a pew in a church. Now think about it. Expect just sitting there, because I am now here on a Saturday or Sunday, that I can look at this man who is totally flawed and expect, God's energy to flow down from that man and right out to me. It's good to do that. It's good to have community. It's good to listen to the message, but you need to seek out that connection for yourself. And when you are filled with God's love, everything become everything becomes clear. And that is, love is God.
What
Forgiveness
some
is
people
God.
don't understand, though, is like you said, we are messengers. The information is not from us. We are just the messenger of the information. And that is, I've struggled with this over the year. It's one of the reasons that I try to stay with my rule of not doing readings for friends.
Right.
you know um, People say they want the truth, they want the messages until you give it to them, and then they delete you, they cuss you out, they go and say every mean possible thing they could say about you to do it. Like, when they said the old saying, don't shoot the messenger, that is so very true, because again, I tell people all the time, and you talked about this at the beginning, when I give a reading, I don't want you to interact with me when I'm going. When I'm getting the messages, I want to give all the information that I can get, and then we can talk and you can tell me what is validated, what's not. There's nothing more than I hate when I hear somebody or watch somebody giving a reading, and they'll say something and they'll say, "Oh yeah, I see an older woman, or maybe your grandmother, great grand." Well, duh. So, and then they're like, "Oh yeah, yeah," and then they're
Yeah.
like, "Oh okay," and if they're like, "No," then they're like, "Oh okay, well maybe." maybe it's not grandma, maybe it's an aunt, and then so it's all they're reading, they're cold reading, and drives me absolutely bonkers.
I think
But look,
you're absolutely right. With these readings, I've been trying, but nobody wants to hear any bad news. Everybody wants to hear that they're going to be millionaires, or you're going to come into some big money. But as soon as you become honest and say, "Well, I'm seeing this, I'm seeing that," they don't want to hear you anymore. They don't want to
but
talk to you anymore.
that's because you're Mr. Positivity. It's like they come to me to expect
Hey,
you want to tell them everything will be all right and give them a hug. See,
no,
I'm the mean one that I'll tell them the reality.
yeah, I actually stopped real. I know you're going to get on to something else, but I actually stopped hugging people I don't know because I don't know. I've been more standoffish a little bit. Not that I don't have love for everybody, because I don't know what's going on there. I don't want them to pass on something that I really don't want. I've been kind of protecting myself lately a lot.
Good, good, good. Well, you see, you're learning. You're learning something. Well, we've got a special guest in queue that wants to come on, and
Hey.
George, yeah, give her a big clap. You'll probably recognize her. Yeah, she deserves a big clap. Who is our mystery guest?
I have no idea.
Miss Kara, how are you?
Hi, good. How are you?
Oh no.
I am good. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Hi, honey. How are you?
It's fun. What's your question today?
I was just wondering if you have any messages for me from my spirit guide.
Give me just a second. Like I said, I'm not a fast talker. I actually have to take a second to connect. So let me.
Absolutely.
Now I can't hear anybody talking, so I'm gonna stay back.
Well, it's your wife, so
It's
that's on
fine.
there. So,
I don't need to know.
hey, I'll drop you from the conversation, buddy. Better be
No,
nice.
I am. I love her.
You're not even going to hear. You're not even going to hear the message. So you better be careful. It might be go give your husband a swift kick in the butt from the spirit world after the show.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I can tell you that you're more comfortable inside the house than outside the house, and it's almost like I'm being told that to um, you need to go down the path that you've been wanting to go down. And it's like you're afraid of falling off the porch, if that makes sense. Like if you follow this, you're going to fall off the porch, and you're really afraid. But what I'm being shown, it's not going to be a far drop. It's going to be something that's going to be new for you, but it's just going to be a transition. You see what
Okay,
I'm saying? A transition.
that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, so it's something that you're wanting to do. Sometimes I'm not shown everything, and I should say that. It's just not no, for me to know everything. But it's like I was shown that the porch looked really really tall, but in reality the porch was being brought down. So you're going to step off. It's okay. You need to go down this path, and you always question yourself too. You second guess yourself way too much. All right, and what I'm being shown though for you because it's so important is your spiritual path. It's like at times, it's like with Mother Teresa, as connected as she was to God. They were so shocked when in her memoirs that she had written to herself, her diaries, she said sometimes the quietness of God's absence was there, and it scared her. And so for you, you're on the right path. You are connected. Sometimes there will be those quiet moments. So
Thank
just
you. No, that makes sense because I do second guess myself a lot. And
Hmm.
George can attest to that.
I have to say, Pat, ding, 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 ding. You're a winner on that one because I gave Kara a little mini reading when I first met her as well, and pretty much told her the same things. And I told her she was working on some jewelry, and I told her, look, you need to start putting that out. You need to put it out there and show people, and they're going to come, and you're going to be so shocked at the acceptance that you get out there. And that's exactly what's been happening. She did her first convention and sold some jewelry there. She's doing awesome.
and she's still afraid though to really go all the way to go out there, this path.
Yep.
And but God is saying that you're on the right path. There will be a little transition, sometimes a little bit of a stumbling block, but there's no major obstacles in your way except yourself. You're the way that you second guess yourself all the time. So
You're absolutely right. Oh my God.
Oh,
You're
I
absolutely 100% right. She second guessed herself all the time. She doesn't give her the credit that's due to her own self. She just doesn't have confidence in herself. And I know she should have confidence. She's really great.
Yes, you should. You have a lovely energy, by the way.
Well,
Very nice.
thank you so much.
Yeah.
And George, I thought you said you couldn't hear anything.
He can't hear you, but he can
Oh,
hear the
okay.
guest.
Yeah, I can't.
I knew you were going to say that too.
Oh no,
Go
whatever.
figure. I must be psychic.
Well, thank you so much.
You are
You're
very
very welcome. Thanks for calling in,
Okay,
Karen. I
thanks.
appreciate it.
Okay, bye.
Yeah. Lori was saying, yep, I don't give hugs because of energies. You know, it's hard for me because I am just one of those people, like, I absolutely love people.
Yes.
So I literally, when I see them, like, if I don't hug you, you pretty much know I don't, like, we're not going to mesh, or like your energy is way too negative for me. And I might just wave to you from afar or say, hey, how you doing? But otherwise, I hug everybody. And I probably shouldn't, after all the years, but I mean, what can you do? I mean, that's who I am. But now that people realize I can read energy like that, I have noticed that sometimes people are a little bit more standoffish to hug me because
Right.
they think that somehow I got this super telepathy and I'm going to know everything that they've ever done in their life bad. I'm going to know everything they're thinking, and I'm going to call them out on everything, and maybe I'll do a show about them on that night. So they're a little bit more standoffish now after a few years of shows. But yeah, I am one of those people. It's just kind of, I'm drawn to people, and they're drawn to me. They either love me or they love to hate me. It's one or the other. Never in the middle.
See, I'm different. If I'm reading and I'm filled with God's love and protection, I guess I will hug you in a heartbeat. But I am very much an introverted extrovert, and so I get up in front of lots of people, I give talks, etc. But I don't give you my energy unless I'm being channeled, and then it's like, oh, I have to have a hug, and I do. I hug you because I truly love you. But the rest of the time, it's like, all right, stay over there. It's like being Jekyll and Hyde sometimes.
Right.
Nothing wrong with that. Christopher says, awesome show. Thanks, Chris. Thanks for coming. I appreciate that. As one of our listeners out in Pennsylvania. Steffi says, I need help. I wonder if my boyfriend of 4 years and if I will ever get married. All right, Steffi, if you guys, for anybody out there has a question like that for Pat, what I need you to do is I will put the link again in the comment section. You'll either copy and paste that or click that. I'll put it in there right now. And then you can come in on the live conversation and we can answer those questions for you. So let me put it in here. Come on, little computer.
You don't want to know the answer I got right away when she asked that question.
Oh, yeah?
No.
Sure I do. Always. Okay, hold on. All right, here is the link, everybody. So all you need to do is just click on that link. You'll be able to join into the lobby, and then we will bring you on. Let's see, what else do we have here? Lori says, I know what you mean, Pat. I'm introverted and extrovert as well. So, and he gets her. And George is much like I am. I mean, he's like the male version of me. It's so crazy because our experiences are so similar. But he as well is a very strong empath. He's got strong abilities, and he's very drawn to everybody. And you know what? I mean, that's part of the problem of being this way is that we're very drawn, and we are definitely drawn to people needing things or needing other people or that need fixing. And although I'm very drawn to them, I never went to school to become a psychiatrist. I have no counselor degree. I may give good advice. I suck at taking my own advice. So, I'm not trying to be anybody's guru. I'm not trying to be, any of those things, but it's interesting that we end up attracting those kinds of people that you can't fix. You're not going to be able to change them, but we sure as heck believe that we can. So we'll put anything and everything of energy that we have into this person, usually only in the end to be screwed over by them or stabbed in the back. And then it's kind of like, oh, you go through like a mourning process. But again, I think that's being way too connected with people. And I try to make like a line, that when I do readings, but unfortunately, I'm really bad. Like I'm supposed to keep like my clients and things separate of my friend. Like I don't even have any like people say, "Oh, your fans or your followers." No, everybody on Facebook and listens to my friend. I consider them my friend. Like if I saw you, I'd want to take you out to lunch. I want to give you a hug. Like if you support me, you're awesome. I don't see people as my fans or the fans of the show or that I'm anybody, trivial like that. I'm just like everybody else just trying to help here and there where we can. So it's interesting how, again, people with different abilities can come with all different kinds of stories, all different types of abilities, where we're completely out and want to be in the middle of everything. George will tell you, we go somewhere and I'm networking all over the place. You gotta like have your tennis shoes on to catch up with me because I'm out there
Absolutely.
talking to everybody. I love everyone.
Yes, you do.
But for you can talk in front of a lot of people, but you're very standoffish with who you share your energy with. So I love again having people on that it is different, so that people can see that not everybody. It's not psychic abilities, and people with psychic abilities are not cookie cutters. It's not this cookie cutter that is everybody has this or they have that, or if you have this, it means you're the legit. If you can't do this, it means you're not. It just doesn't work that way. And I think shows like this are important to teach people that not everything under that label that they're given, is correct.
But
You
you know
never
what?
really know.
No, but what she said earlier, though, what it is with the three of us here, it balances everything. It's all about balance right now. I mean, that's what I'm looking at it. I mean, we're all bringing something to the table, and I think it just all balances out, and it's all level.
Absolutely. Lori says being telepathic and an empath, a physical psychic medium, I am super cautious of everyone. Yeah, me too. And I probably should be more cautious, but unfortunately, again, I'm great at giving advice. I suck at taking my own.
Exactly.
um, uh, Christopher says he'd like to come on. Yeah, Chris, if you want to come on and get a reading or ask a question, feel free. Just click on the link and feel free to come in. Steffi, same thing. Anybody that's wanting. Chasey says, enjoying the show. Hi, Pat. It's good to see you, Chasey. Nice. I'm glad that you're able to make it to the show tonight. Uh, got a lot of great people here, a lot of new people as well. So again, appreciate everybody being here. And again, throughout the show, at the end of the show, please help us out by sharing this video, get it out. It's also streaming live on YouTube right now. It'll be available on YouTube. All of the audio streams you can find across social media, across all the platforms. You can get it on Spreaker, iHeartRadio, iTunes, SoundCloud, Podbean, you name it, we're out there, and the show's out there. So make sure to like our pages and share it. Give us some support. If you have questions, you can also drop them in the chat room. Okay, hold on. Steffi says, I'm very empathic with my kids or people close to me. That sounds about right, Pat? I mean, people who you're more connected with, it seems it's easier to be able to read them.
Well, and don't forget, I mean, what she's talking about is she's also sharing energy with her bloodline. And if you look at a lot of the holy books, they talk about the blood quite a bit. So it's again back to that energy and vibration and being able to feel each other, even at long distances. When you think about it, when someone passes that is dear to you, no matter where they are in this world, all of a sudden you feel that you can feel that, and it's empty. And even if you aren't psychic and that person has passed, and you're aware of that person passing, there's still an emptiness that you feel. So that most people feel, I should say. And in that respect, we we can understand energy, spiritual energy, and our individual energy. So,
All right, so we got about a half hour left in the show. It always goes by so fast, and I want to definitely talk about your book. St. Albans, like I said, is a place that has forever been on my bucket list. There it is.
that's a book.
Goes to St. Albans Sanatorium. So, what brought all this, about for the book, and what were your experiences when you were doing your research for the book?
Well, I actually cannot remember the first year I went to St. Albans. Whoa, I'm over 50, but I will tell you that I was a journalist, a working journalist for a while, and then I taught journalism for 12 years. And so for a long time, I wrote for a lot of different paranormal magazines. Haunted Times, Ghost Voices magazine was one of my favorites, and it is actually with Ghost Voices magazine that I went to St. Albans for the first time. And when I went there, it's just absolutely beautiful. I'll show you a black and white if you can see.
Oh yeah.
And that is St. Albans is this beautiful Victorian era building. If you know anything about Victorian architecture, you know the wood, beautiful wood that we can even imagine putting into buildings now, or just part and parcel of that sort of architecture. And so I went, I looked at, absolutely fell in love with the architecture, but more than that, there's an energy there. And when I say energy, a lot of buildings are, have, I think, a lot of energy because they're just so vast, like Waverly Hills. I mean, think of the numbers of, thousands of people who died there, who were ill there, all the emotions that are trapped within that building. But with St. Albans, which started off as a Lutheran boys' school, it actually sits on the banks of what geologists think is the second oldest river on the planet Earth, and that is the New River. It literally overlooks the New River. So you have hydroelectric energy coming from this very ancient river, and the St. Albans actually sits over top of limestone caverns. So you're getting that double whammy of hydroelectric energy and then limestone.
What
Uh,
about ley lines? Are there any ley lines near there, Pat?
that's a good question. I have not checked. I know that, especially West Virginia and Ohio, man, they're just chock full. In fact, when I talked with Rosemary Ellen Guiley, who, by the way, wrote the foreword to my first book, um, she said that she absolutely loves Ohio and West Virginia because of that. And this, of course, is Virginia, but not so far away. And that's something I'll check on. That's a good point, Christina. Um, but if you get a chance, it rarely disappoints. And the thing about her, and it is a her, it was a place of healing. It was a sanatorium after it became or was a boys' school. It started as a boys' school, but the headmaster died with liver cancer, and they never really got it back on track. And so it was sold to Dr. King, who was a early psychiatrist, and he founded St. Albans Sanatorium, which was a new chapter, of course, in the grounds and the buildings life. I will tell you, in my neck of the woods, where I'm from, in Southwest Virginia, there's very few families here that have not been impacted in some way by St. Albans. For instance, I was in a car going to a conference, and we had the director at the time of our foundation in the car, and I was telling her I was writing this book. And she said, St. Albans, she said, that my great aunt, or my aunt rather, my aunt was actually put in St. Albans. She wandered away from the building, and they found her dead on the grounds. What a story, right?
What?
What a story. And I mean, there's just literally just dozens of these stories. It's got a very dark history. And yet again, we were talking about that balance, right? Of light and dark. I've had several experiences there. They've got so many different entities, and it's not just one ghost. We are talking, we've got a child named Jacob who I had an investigator come out one night in the room and said, "You've got to come in here. And I said, don't tell me what's going on because I don't want my head involved. And so she said, come in, stand 18 inches from the wall right here. And I did. And I am not kidding you. I stood there a couple of minutes and a small hand came up and started pushing me on the lower part of my back, like, leave me alone or get out of my way, which I thought was kind of sweet in the beginning. And then I realized after I did research on the building that that is actually a the man who was accused of killing him, his room.
Oh
Uh,
wow.
yeah, is that not sad? That wasn't Jacob's room. That was his murderer's room. And I'm feeling this little hand. So it's just such a bittersweet experience. Um, but he is often felt by people, either in his room or in that room. So very active little ghost. Then we have Rebecca, who hung herself in the suicide bathroom. Now, according to you know the sanatorium's urban history, there is a bathroom. It's called the suicide bathroom. It was on the third floor. If someone, and that's where they would put the problem children. And if somebody was too much of a problem, they would let them go and take a shower by themselves.
Hmm.
So it became known as the suicide bathroom because at least three, um, suicides are known to have happened there, which is kind of interesting. They've got little alley of the bowling alley. You can hear a little girl giggling, and it's a mixed bag down there because not only is there a little girl, but there is also this thing, and it scares people. It sounds like a bear or a tiger. It growls, and they can sense movement. Let's put it this way: it has sent more than one hardened investigator straight up those steps. Oh yeah, so it's a really cool place.
With the
They have
place,
some.
it's
I
just
want to
open.
go. I want
I
to
know.
go.
I'm
It's like
telling
a
you,
challenge.
it's amazing. They've got the thing about this place, it's really weird. It's like New Orleans. If you've ever been to New Orleans, okay, my father's people are from New Orleans up to Shreveport. New Orleans has this energy that it either takes you and caresses you and says, "You are my child. You are the daughter that is supposed to be here." Or
Or
energy.
it takes you and it feeds you to the alligators there, which is why I don't go.
Exactly.
The
Same.
See?
alligators. The
See?
alligators.
That exactly. See?
You know what I'm saying? Okay, St. Albans has that same energy. She either takes you in her arms and you feel safe in probably 90% of the building because I've walked around that building on numerous occasions, photographing it, or you end up like I think it was Eric Knapp and his wife that was up on the second floor, and he saw the grinning man. And what happened? They're standing there, and all of a sudden, this thing falls down from the ceiling with this huge grin on its face, like the Joker kind of grin that's not on the face to bemuse you or that this entity is bemused, but rather to terrify you. And so, so it's very much a very energetic, very dark energy. And it's very frightening to have that happen, as you can imagine. They have shadow people, of course, which is part and parcel, I think, of most haunted locations. It's really interesting because some people have actually looked out windows and have seen. I think it was part of the Union Army that was banked on the banks right outside in a camp, and they actually see these Union soldiers from the Civil War. And there is also a wounded Civil War soldier who is a rebel. He's dressed in gray that wanders throughout the buildings, which is really, really interesting. There's just so much that goes on there. There's one man that is called the Tongue Man that was solved by, let's see, Southeast Virginia Paranormal Investigations, their team. They are like super professional. These guys are awesome. But anyway, they were there and they call him the Tongue Man because it's like he's had lithium, which would make sense considering they started the sanatorium in 1916. And so he actually he has trouble with his tongue, and he's kind of shuffling, like doing that missing shuffle. So he's seen quite a bit in the world of uh, shadow people. The Hat Man is the one that scares people the most. There's
The
something
Hat
about
Man.
this energy.
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah.
we've actually
Yeah.
had a couple people come on not only to talk about the Hat Man, but also Slender Man as well. So
Yeah.
we definitely been a hot topic. Looks like we have a caller coming in.
Awesome.
She was in and out of focus. So oh, there she is. Hold on just a second. Let's bring her into the broadcast. Sharon, how are you? Can you hear me, Sharon?
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, how are you? Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm fine. How are you?
Good, good. Did you have a question for
Good.
Pat?
I did. Yes, can you hear me?
I
Yes.
can.
Good, good.
What is your question tonight?
Pat, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Just a
well, we,
second.
we can hear you, Sharon. What's your question for her?
Well, my question has to do with someone named Mark Dyer. Do you have any feelings about him?
I'll try to connect with this energy.
Maybe anything that could be said or relayed?
Oh, sorry. I was just trying to connect. I was trying to see who, see if I could pick up on this energy to see if I could get any physical characteristics. Um, would this gentleman have worn glasses? Um, I'm just seeing glasses. Is why I'm asking this.
Could you hear her answer, Sharon?
Barely.
Okay, she asked if the person that you're referring to, did he by chance wear glasses?
No.
All right, that's all I'm picking up on, Sharon. I was picking up on it. Now, is this someone who could be connected to you, though? I was picking up on someone with glasses who was thin, who would have worn a hat. He would have been comfortable in a hat.
Were you able to hear that, Sharon?
Um,
Okay, let me say for her as well. So she said maybe that's not who you were wanting to talk to, but the person who came through to her is a man of a thinner build. He has glasses and wears some type of a hat. Does that make any sense to you of somebody else that you know that may have passed that? Oh, it
hello?
looks like she's frozen. So, oh, there you go.
Yeah, it makes sense to me.
Okay, so maybe that's the person that's coming through. Again, people have to understand that when you come to a psychic, especially on a live show like this, and you want to connect with somebody in particular, that person will only come through to give us a message if they feel they need to come through and give a message. Sometimes they might have a message, but somebody might be in the queue that has wants to say hi and takes precedence in that line of, and so that's who comes forward. But seems like she did connect with somebody. Is there a message, Pat?
Oh, I'm sorry. I kind of lost the connection there. But no, another thing too. Sometimes it's just a stronger spirit that's connected to them for some reason. They may not feel as connected to this energy, but the energy definitely feels more connected to them, and so they can also step forward, or they are just an extrovert where the person that you may want to speak with is an introvert. People don't change. They don't get whitewashed because they go over to the other side. We often we usually keep the same type of personalities and demeanor that we had when we were here. Um, let me try to connect with him again.
Okay. She's going to try to connect with the person she was connected with before, Sharon, and see if that person has a message for you.
Okay.
Okay. The person, since you can't, kind of relaying it two different ways. All right, the person wants her to know that she's not alone, and the that she often feels like she is, but she's not. That she has him, and there's others in the soul group around him that are there for her, that are with her.
Hey, Pat. Okay, I'm sorry. Sharon, were you able to hear her answer?
I couldn't.
Okay, so this person that came forward that she was describing before is saying that for some reason you're feeling alone, or sometimes you feel that way, and he wants to let you know that you're not alone. Not only is he around you, but there's also other people in your soul connection that are with you as well. So, does that make sense to you?
It does.
Well, good, good. I'm glad that you're able to get, a little bit of feedback. I mean, again, if you're looking for, more answers or a more in-depth reading, I will definitely make sure to put up Pat's information at the end of the show so that you can get more of a reading. But I'm glad that although it wasn't the person that you wanted to connect with, somebody obviously close to you felt that they wanted to get this message forward. So I'm glad that it made sense to you.
That's good. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thanks for calling in. Like I said, you got to love, again, so many people don't realize how this works. And I've had clients as well that have said, "Oh, I want to connect with, cousin Joe."
Yeah.
And, okay, I want to, give you a message from cousin Joe, and cousin Joe doesn't feel like giving a message, but so and so does.
And I'll tell you, one time this happened to me. Some of them wanted to talk to their grandmother, right? And I was in that. We go into, when it's an in-depth reading, we do go into trance. We go into alpha states, and it's the same state that 80% of paranormal activity is reported in, and that's when you're half asleep and half awake. It's simply a
Right.
trance. And
Wow.
yeah, I know. And I mentioned I was ADD, right? I was on a path to a statement, and right off the path. I'm sorry. I had a reason for. Go ahead. Yes, I have ADD, people. Oh, and by the way, I have been tested for Alzheimer's. I am a 30 out of 30. I'm good. Okay,
You
go
know
ahead.
what's funny is I couldn't hear anything that was going on. I can't hear anybody. Have you ever felt like I couldn't hear anything, and all of a sudden I felt like it was somebody like a welder, like somebody. It was like the person she was talking was like a welder. It was weird, even though I have no permission to be talking like this. But it was weird. All of a sudden, this welder, like a welder, was coming to my head. I was like, "What? Who's
Well,
the?"
let's find out. We still have her in the queue, so hold on. Let's pull her up and ask her. Hold on.
Sorry about that. This has nothing to do
No,
with
hey,
me.
that's good. Hey, Sharon, I don't know if you were hearing that, but George was saying that when we were talking, that somebody came forward to him that seemed to be what seemed to be a welder.
Yeah, and I
It,
can't hear anybody. I can't hear anybody.
he can't hear anybody. He couldn't hear what we were saying. But do you know somebody who's passed that was a welder?
Yes.
Oh, there you
Yeah,
go,
that would have
George.
been my
Yes,
dad.
her
Was
dad.
her dad?
Her dad was a
Wow.
welder.
Her dad is a heavy set man and wore a beanie all the time.
Was
Um,
he a more of a
Mm.
heavy set man with a beanie?
No, my dad was slender and tall.
Yeah.
So maybe that was dad that was coming through earlier. Was that who you thought maybe was it with Pat?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you got the welder part right. I mean, again, George, again, we all pick up on different spirits. So maybe there's an additional person that's trying to come through that was connecting with you. But the welder thing, I mean, again,
that's weird.
you don't know her, she doesn't know you, so it's not like you know her story or her father. So to know that he was a welder, so again, George's abilities are kind of on the newer side. He's really kind of starting to find his way through all this. So I make him practice a lot. So this was great. So thanks for being a practice candidate.
Can I
He
ask?
described more my brother, though, than my father.
Oh, there you go, George. She said you described more of her brother.
Is he still here?
Is he still?
No.
No, he's
No.
not.
Okay.
Did he have darker hair when he was here? I mean, it would have been darker. Yours is.
Did her brother or her dad?
Okay, I had just started to pick up on this darker haired man.
Who's the guy with the darker hair, Sharon?
That was probably Mark.
Would that be
That's exactly who I was looking for, yeah.
The one you were looking for? Okay.
Now
Wow.
he started
Yeah.
through. Let me ask, was his personality like that? If your father would have been around, would he have let him spoke first if he would have wanted to? A lot of times we have the same personalities, and so if he would have stood back in respect or something like that to allow your father to speak first.
Sorry, she was saying that was Mark the type of person that if your dad, say, was to come through on this reading, would he have been somebody who would have stepped back and allowed your father to speak first to put more before him?
Yes.
Well,
and
there
then,
you go.
And then he started appearing, and I started seeing the man with the dark hair, and he laughed a lot too. This is a man's man. He wants you to know it's almost like boom, 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 man's man. Okay, I mean he's still got it all together. I mean, I just heard that. I still got it all together. Okay, it was like he'd make fun. He had some self-depreciating humor. Does that make sense for him?
Yeah, it does.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. He's happy. This is a happy soul. So if you had any compunction, or if he might have left this world in a state that he may not have wanted, and I'm not trying to connect for that right now because we have what is called shadow death, and we can feel how they died. It's like a shadow of it, and it's very uncomfortable. So I'm not going there right now, but it's like he's saying, "Hey, I left that all behind. It's like I stepped through the door and I am fine." Okay, it's like, and he was real expressive. It's like his hands. I want to keep doing this. See, yeah, yeah. He was real expressive, real energetic. Yeah.
Makes
That
sense.
sounds like Mark.
Yeah, that's
All
it.
right.
Oh, it's him. I like your brother. He did. He was stepping back to let your father. Your father had a really kind of. They were like bookends. He's not as loud as your brother was. It's like he was strong, but it was a different type of personality.
The dad was like a protector. The dad
Yeah.
protected.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm going to tell you, when he was saying that you weren't alone, that's his strong message to you, is that he's with you and he feels your heart because he's connected to you in a very energetic way, and he knows the loneliness that you feel sometimes, and he wants you to know you're not alone, that I'm here. And it was, his energy was just very like, he wanted to put his arms around you and let you know that, because it's weighing on you. You're having some dark nights, and he wants you to rest. It's like he wants you to rest in a positive way, in a good way. And he's saying to me also that when you can rest your mind, I can visit you in your dreams. He wants to come to you in your dreams.
Sounds good, Pat. Thank you.
I can see from that smile you're a happy camper. So I'm glad that a few people were able to come through and you were able to get a little bit of clarity from all of this. But thank you again so much for joining us tonight and asking the question.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Sorry to interrupt you like that, girls. I was just, the whole welding thing was coming on.
No, hey.
Perfect.
Hey, you're right there. That was great. Rachel says, "This is neat, Christina. Where can I watch live all four people?" Sometimes it's 3, sometimes it's 4. It depends if we have callers. Rachel, this is about to be over in about 6 minutes, and so you can catch the replay. You can check it out. It'll be right here on the same page. Kelly Hopkins says, "Good evening, Christina and George. Hi to everyone. Nice to see you."
Hello.
Rachel is a friend of mine out here in Napa, real estate agents, great woman, does a lot of giving back to our community here. And uh, she found out that I was into the paranormal. See, again, a lot of people know me and they don't have any idea that I'm a psychic. I really kind of wonder sometimes. I'm like, you know who I am, but you don't know I'm a psychic. Like, I thought they were kind of synonymous with it. You know, if you know Christina George, it's Christina George psychic, psychic medium and Paranormal Connections radio show. Like, it's pretty much no. But I'm learning a lot of people just know who I am for whatever reason, maybe from Facebook, but don't know about my show. So awesome that you're checking it out. You know, I always love when people, it's not maybe they're not into the paranormal, but they catch one of the shows and are like, oh wow, this is really cool. So
Exactly that happened to me just last 2 weeks ago. You do what? I thought you were.
yeah.
Yes,
Well,
I
I'm
do.
telling you, the worst part I think of being in the paranormal. So,
Uh,
I've kind of got over the whole thing of like telling people I'm a psychic, but still, I even get certain times when it's really inopportune. And that's usually like either like when I meet like a guy or like somebody tries to set me up on a date. And so we're like sitting there and like the guy's so into me. He's like, oh, you're just so awesome. And you're
yeah,
great. What do you
yeah,
do for a living? And I'm like, yeah, and that's always like the strange, section right there. And I'm like, yeah, I'm a radio show host. I have radio shows. And he's like, really? What kind of
right.
radio show? What do you talk about? And I'm like, oh crap.
Yep.
Okay. Well, now it's now or never. So I'll say, well, I talk about the paranormal, and then you see one eyebrow go up, and then I say, and then on my other show, I talk about UFOs, abduction, Bigfoot, conspiracy theories, you name it. Aliens. The other one goes up.
Yeah.
Usually, I don't get a second date after that.
Yeah.
They run for the hills.
Yeah, they
So
do.
yeah, so it's one of those things that like, yeah, I wish I could just not tell everybody, but eventually it's like it comes out anyway. So I figure, well, I might as well get the shock value over and see what they think. But again,
Yeah.
very interesting. Kelly is asking, do any of you believe in archangels? Let's send that to our guest, Pat.
Yes,
Archangels.
yes. Archangels, yes, I do. Absolutely. Um, yeah. I mean, that's just a yes or no. I will give you a close-ended yes. I do.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, we got about 3 minutes left in the show, but I want for people, if people want to get your book, I know that we've put the link to the book in the promo. You guys can scroll down to the bottom of the promo. It'll be down there as also your website. But for people maybe didn't see the links, why don't you give it out to them? And are you going to be doing any events or any speaking engagements anytime soon? If so, like let's let the listeners know about those as well.
Let's see. I have no memory, as ADD people do not, but we will be Mid South coming up at the end of the month,
Nice.
which will be fun in Louisville. I do have, the book, and it is at Amazon.com. Or if you're going to say Albans, actually buy it there, because I have donated all proceeds from all the ones that they sell there to go towards renovations for the building. It was my small way of being able to help. But online at Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and all those other places. And listen, I know people don't like it anymore, but my last lifetime, I actually died during the Edwardian era, and so I like poetry. It's true, I do, and so
Awesome.
yeah, I know. It's Let me tell you, the other day I said, hey, I've got this woman wanted to know what books I had, so I showed her, and she said, well, which one? What's this? I said, that's a book of poetry, and she picked it up and she threw it away from her like it was, I don't know, hurt her. And I said, give me a
God.
weapon, Susan. But it is an ode to, I'm a photographer also, so
What
but
don't you do? Wow.
it, I love it. It's an ode to the
Oh wow.
graveyard spirits and also Edgar Allan Poe, who, they are some of my favorites. In fact, I spent about a year and a half in various graveyards. I've been doing it since I was 13, writing these poems and others. And I was actually in Hollywood Forever, which was really cool, and because it was just amazing. And then also just so many. But anyway, so if you're interested in that, that's called Boneyard Voice. You can tell it's actually one of my favorites. But this is an awesome book. Uh, and let me show you one thing because I know we have to close out. In the back of the book is the architectural drawings of the building, and right below it, it shows X marks the spot what you could expect to see there. So all
Oh
the
yeah.
gas leads are actually marked and noted so that you can tell wherever you're at in the building and what may be there to greet you.
Oh, that's awesome. What a great idea.
Very, very cool.
That's a very cool idea.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Kelly says, I've been visited by the King of Angels, Archangel Israel, a few nights ago. It was very interesting. Definitely
Wow.
very. You should give us a message, private message, just Kelly, and give us the information. Maybe bring you on the show to talk about it. Let's see. Brian Gregory says, I believe in ghosts, but not you knowing your past death and past life, LOL. Come on, and I'm on your side, LOL. Now, I will say, and we only have a few minutes, but there are a lot of people who, again, can maybe swallow the psychic ability pill. But when we start talking about past lives, again, I think that this is like a learning curve for everybody because, again, before everybody say, oh, there's no such thing as psychics, nobody can know anything like this. And then as time has gone on and people have been more educated and seen more examples of how psychic mediums work and how accurate they are, and then people started saying, oh, yeah, okay, it's not, maybe we could bite this. But we really don't see anything on TV or talked about much when we talk about past lives. So I think that still for a lot of people that are on the edge, that's still kind of like a hard pill to swallow. That how could somebody know about somebody else's past life and how could you prove that it's legit?
Well, it was just validation a couple of minutes ago. We're like,
I was just going to say that.
hold on a minute. I out of the blue, here it is, real quick. I know you got to go. There's trillions and trillions of jobs. What I was connected to was a welder, and it was her dad. So it wasn't something that I was guessing on. It was something that somebody was telling me about. Hey, he's a welder. I was connecting with the dad. I could have said there's millions of jobs. So how the heck did I come up with welder? So you know what? You gotta start believing that there is something out there. You just gotta believe, and then maybe you could try. Maybe you have a gift or something. I don't know. But I hate when people say that.
Right. And Pat, you were saying about when we were talking about that psychic vampire woman you were doing the reading for. Not only did you see her in multiple past lives looking exactly the same way, which you said was very different for you, but she had also done a lot of research on her past lives and was actually able to find pictures of herself in other times, right?
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yes. I would like to say too that past life readings just aren't arbitrary. I mean, you can actually do research. Like I had this one woman come to me recently, and I told her, I said, you died during the Second World War. You were on a medical vessel, a ship. Because I saw the big old-fashioned Red Cross with the white behind it, white circle. I said, you weren't a nurse, but I see you putting away things. You died in an Oriental Sea, I think it was the Sea of Japan, and you went down in 5 minutes. You died quickly. So I love the Brits, right? I told her she was British. I love them. They're crazy about records. So I go into the database. I knew her name. I looked up her name. She was a volunteer. She was on a medical ship. It was completed by the Germans, and it went down in 5 minutes. That's what I'm saying. This is some arbitrary stuff. You get enough information. You get names. You get places. You get dates, and you trace those. I mean, there's a man, and I wish I could remember his name, and I know I have to shut up, but he spent years doing this, and this is what he does, and he actually does the research to go back. So, and for those of us who have had past lives, I remember mine from a very small child, and I'm still looking for me, unfortunately, but I keep seeing my death over and over and over. So, and that's from the time, that I can remember my dreams. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, I love, again, even things when we, like as psychics, when we're utilized in a paranormal investigation, when I go through, I go through, I don't want to know any information about where I'm going in the case that we're going to be on till I show up that day and I walk through. I want to walk through with no preconceived information or ideas in my mind, show up at the location raw and see what I pick up on. Now, yeah, people could say, oh, well, that could be any information. But then I have a historian that does all of the history on the location beforehand. I have a case manager who knows the whole story inside and out. We've got a full thing. And when you're able to get the information and the history and everything, pictures, all that stuff seem to all match up. Mm-hmm. It's very hard to say, well, this couldn't be true, but again, I think that it's something that is in the paranormal field is probably the least talked about topic. And maybe that's something on the next show when we bring you and Jennifer back on. Maybe we can do a little bit of talking about past life, and how that all works. Because, again, I think that there's just not enough knowledge out there. And, again, people don't believe whatever, they can't wrap their mind around or they haven't personally experienced. So, again, educating people, best way to, to show the reality of what we're doing. So, again, I so appreciate you coming on the show tonight. It's gone by real quick. Everybody is enjoying the show. Put a lot of great comments up. Again, Brian, thank you for your question. Again, on this show, no matter what side of the fence you're on, we want your questions, we want your opinions, and we'll give you an answer, whatever the guest thinks. Rachel says, "Love graveyards. They are beautiful and historic." And yeah, a lot of us with the Bills are. I know myself and a lot of other people I know. I spent all of my time as a teenager meditating and hanging out in the, graveyards and cemeteries. And people used to think I was the weirdest people. Now, all the people I meet, they're like, oh my gosh, it's like we're family. Now I thought I was the only crazy one that hung out into the cemetery. I'm like, oh no, there's a whole bunch of us out here.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Actually, that's where I collect myself. At cemeteries where I reamp myself. I find all my energy build up in the cemetery. When I feel down, I hit the local cemetery, so I feel better. It's kind of weird.
Yeah.
But.
And it does both for me. Like when I'm really stressed out or I'm really upset, I can go, and the cemetery has a very calming effect for me.
Yes.
I have the best meditations ever when I do meditation in the cemetery. Yep. People think I'm crazy sometimes about it, but I will tell you, it's one of the most peaceful locations that, you can find. Mostly what I get is a lot of residual energy that is left from people who have been at the graveside mourning. Mm-hmm. That I get a lot of, but not so much people walking around or wandering around. I find them everywhere else. But yeah, they're very amazing places. I absolutely love it. So, and George, by the way, when I was up at the cemetery here, when I did the live stream recently, and I was looking for my two friends, and I couldn't find their grave sites, and I was so upset.
Yes.
I ended up going back up there. I found both of them, took pictures, said, my piece to them, and it was amazing. It was amazing after all of these years. That was back in the late 80s when, we had to bury them. So it was nice to be able to go back and reminisce. So that was just a little bit of update. All right, everybody, we are out of here. Make sure to join George and I on Thursday. We are going to be talking about top trending strange news. And we know in
a lot.
All of these topics that we cover, there's never a lack of articles to talk about. So we will have all kinds of new ones. We always love to hear your opinions. If you have a topic or a guest that you'd like to see on the show, please make sure to either private message George or I, or you can send us an email at paranormalconnections@gmail.com, and we will get right back to you. You can also send us a private message on the show page. That being said, I hope you guys all have an amazing, amazing week. We'll be back in a few days. And Pat, thank you so much. We'll have you and Jennifer back on soon.
You're awesome, Pat.
All right, everyone. You've been listening to Paranormal Connections radio show on the UPRN Talk Radio Network, 107.7 out of New Orleans. And we will see you next time. Good night, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Love you.
I can't find my cursor. Here it is.
There you go. God, that was awesome. I didn't want it to